Good morning and welcome to The VUU. I am Reverend Joanna Fontaine Crawford here in Austin, Texas, and I'm very excited to have joining me the Reverend Michael Tino, who is our guest host while Meg is off wandering around the country. I keep seeing little photos and little comments about her trip. So Michael, can you introduce yourself, please?
Good morning, Joanna. Good morning, viewers. I'm Michael Tino. I probably should. No, I did that. I'm Michael Tino. I'm the minister of the UU Fellowship of Northern Westchester in Mount Kisco, New York, joining you from Peekskill, New York, a little north of New York City. And I've been a guest a number of times, but this is my first time guest hosting, and I'll be with you all month. So it's great to be here.
And you forgot to mention daddy of the most adorable little girl.
I am daddy to a 3-year-old who has made a guest appearance on The VUU herself. But she's in preschool now, so she will not be joining us today.
She's not a baby anymore.
Okay.
So we're going to pretty quickly get on to our guest, but before we do that, what's it like where you are, Michael?
It's a gray, beautiful fall day. We went right from summer to the middle of fall here. There was no cooling off period in New York. We went right from 80 to 60. So I'm hoping the trees start turning, because
wow.
That's the restorative to my soul this time of year. How about there in Austin?
I am madly envious because, you know, it's going to be up in the 90s again today. And, you know, every year this happens and all of us it's like we've never lived here before. Why is this happening? No, this is unfortunately normal. And a lot of stuff going on around the country. Yesterday I came in from work and I said something to my husband about, wow, did you hear the crazy news today? And he was like, so just an ordinary
crazy news?
Yeah. Kind of hard to.
It's crazy news like 6 times a day.
Yes.
No.
Well, speaking of big news, we have some people who can tell us about things that have been in some news and have absolutely not been getting the media coverage that it should. And Michael, I'll turn it over to you to introduce our guests.
Okay, so if you've been paying attention to what's going on around our nation, you might have heard about the massive resistance that's being organized. And I'm trying to pick my words correctly because it's not a protest. It's really it's resistance on the part of people, indigenous people in North Dakota who are trying to protect sacred spaces and water. And I'll get our guests will say more, but folks are trying to build a gigantic pipeline right through the Standing Rock Lakota lands, and many people have organized to resist that and to protect that land in solidarity with the folks at Standing Rock. And some of those folks are Unitarian Universalists. And so we have a group of folks here with us today. We have joining us from Bismarck, North Dakota, the Reverend Karen Van Fossan, who's the minister of the Bismarck-Mandan Unitarian Universalist congregation. And with her, there is Ronya Hoblit, who is a lay leader, and Lakota herself. And so we're glad to have them here from North Dakota. We also have Carlo Voli here from Washington State, who's a member of the Edmonds Unitarian Universalist congregation. And Carlo spent many weeks in solidarity with the protectors at Standing Rock. Alyzza May, who is a community organizer in Greensboro, North Carolina, who went to Standing Rock with a delegation from North Carolina. And Eliza, I don't know if it's to your credit here on The VUU that you're Hank Peirce's niece, but since you put that in your introduction, I'll let folks know that. And the Reverend Florence Caplow, who's the minister of the Quimper Unitarian Universalist congregation in Port Townsend, Washington, who also traveled to Standing Rock in solidarity with the protectors there. So we have a whole host of guests here today, and I guess let's turn it over to the folks right there in North Dakota first. Karen and Ronya, can you give us a sense from your perspective as folks there in North Dakota, what you're seeing and what Unitarian Universalists can do to support the protectors? And I see you there, Karen and Ronya, but I don't hear anything.
How about now?
Okay, now
Yes.
we've got you.
All right. Well, it's just an honor to be on the show with everybody, and it's good to see some friends again who've traveled here and who we've been privileged to meet when they've come. So Ronya and I are here, and the two of us, along with our congregation at large, have been in solidarity with Standing Rock from the beginning, which was an earlier beginning than many people knew about. The camp started actually the first camp started in the spring. And I think the numbers have reached 5,000, even 10,000 at times. I've heard, yeah. I mean, you know how counting goes. When we count with our hearts, our numbers get large. But certainly a 5,000 mark was an official tally at one time. And there are water protectors and people in solidarity, mostly Native people and also people of other cultures who have come here just south of here, who are encamped and are in active solidarity with the land and with the water and with Standing Rock, and are actively blocking the construction of the pipeline. And it is, it's a wonder to behold and to be a part of.
Okay. Okay, so I have forgotten the question.
I was just hoping you'd give us your perspective as folks there on the ground in North Dakota, and Ronya, your perspective as a native of that area, about what's going on there, and how Unitarian Universalists can support the protectors.
Yeah, and kind of what all is happening. Unfortunately, I imagine that there are many of our viewers who really don't know, because this hasn't received the media coverage that that other stories are.
Okay, well, the first thing I want to say is that it is the Indigenous people who are fronting this, I guess, but it really is for everyone. And because we all need water, we all need air, and it's so important. The other thing is that this is it's just historical on so many levels, that the tribes have all come together. I believe this is the first time that tribes who are traditionally warring tribes, even though we don't have those active battles anymore, but everybody's aware of it, particularly in Indian country, who used to be the enemy, and now tribes are dropping that. They're in solidarity with this movement and supporting it, and they are at the front. But there are so many other people who are there, who are supporting it. So many people who aren't able to be there, and who are wanting to do things. And it for the tribe, for the again, yeah, not the protests, but for the protection activities. And it's really is it's an opportunity for the native people to write their own history this time. Well, it started before now, not much before now, but I think this is that turning point where they have, with this activity, this event, that they have they're just there's a strength there. I believe it's the strength that has always been there. The tribes haven't gone away. I guess we've lost individual tribes and we've lost languages, but the culture and the basics are still there. And I believe that this is something that will be remembered for a long time among the tribes, and that it will be a bolstering force for things that they may want to take on yet, with some of the other issues, health issues and whatever, that are within the Native communities. So I just feel like this is so much bigger than the water. I mean, the water thing is bigger. It's probably one of the biggest things, but it just goes out into the rest of the community and is a positive. It's such a positive force. I can't even tell you. With the young people, from young people all the way to elders whose maybe their grandparents were around at the last time there was a gathering. It's really important.
So I've heard a couple of times now this statement that this is not a protest, it's a resistance. Is there someone who can explain that?
I think the way that I understand it is that people from Standing Rock and others in solidarity with people from Standing Rock are protecting the water and are water protectors, and have been that since before this pipeline and the pipeline before that and the pipeline before that. So the reality is people protecting the water, and this is another way that people are protecting water. So that is the frame. It's not that this originated with a pipeline and people are reacting to that. This originated with people who hold the water sacred. And that is the base truth at play here.
Thank you. I want to get our other guests in here because we have Carlo and Alyzza and Florence here, who were all called by something in their hearts and souls to go to North Dakota in solidarity. And I'd like you to tell a little bit of your story. Carlo, I understand you were there for 6 weeks. And if you could just each take a few minutes to tell your story about what called you there and what you saw and experienced there, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So I've been, climate justice activist and fighting, fossil fuel companies in the Pacific Northwest for the last 5 years. Was also involved with the resistance to the Keystone XL pipeline, the Shell No, the Arctic, Shell wanted to drill in the Arctic, and in Washington State, and have collaborated with Indigenous peoples and tribes in the area for a number of years. And I kept on thinking, it's like I would so love to be part of an Indigenous-led resistance movement somewhere, and then Standing Rock happened, and it was a combination of fighting pipelines and protecting the water, protecting Mother Earth, and the honoring the treaties. It was completely Indigenous, Native-led by the Standing Rock Sioux Nation, and then all the 200 plus tribes that have joined in solidarity and physically at the camp. And I could just not be there, so I immediately dropped everything I was doing in mid-August in Washington State and headed to North Dakota and got to Sacred Stone Camp, which was the original camp that started back on April 1st. and then grew so much that there was that overflow camp on the other side of the river, and then that turned into the Osheti Sakoni camp, with thousands of indigenous peoples. And as soon as I got there, it was just incredible. The space was mainly indigenous, and you could just feel the energy of all the native folks really having their space and their every day, every hour there'd be drumming and singing and prayer and ceremony and different protocol from all the tribes arriving, and the cultural expressions and the solidarity and the cooperation, and everybody was helping to volunteer in the kitchen and in medic tents and all kinds of things. And it was just incredible to be there. I was just going to be there for 10 days, but after a week, I just knew that there was nowhere else I could be. So I dropped everything else even more back home and ended up staying 6 weeks. After a week, I joined the Red Warrior Camp, which was more focused on organizing nonviolent direct action to physically stop the construction of the pipeline. And main camp was more focused on the prayer and the ceremony and the regulatory process and the legal challenges to the pipeline company. But Red Warrior is led by three grandmothers. All Dakota is a matriarchal system, and everything is led by consensus. And we spent several weeks organizing and planning direct actions till we were finally able to start, deploying them. And we started having folks locking down to machinery at the construction site. And we had several of these actions in early September, and people started getting arrested, and it helped to amplify this resistance in the news and generate more momentum. And on September 13th, I myself also was one of the folks locking down to machinery that was laying the pipe in the trenches. And that day, there was only two of us locking down, and it was supposed to be only the two of us getting arrested. And that was a day that the local law enforcement really escalated and militarized their response. And they showed up with basically a SWAT team with machine guns pointing at us, and about 2-3 dozens of riot police, and they arrested absolutely everybody, the 24 water protectors that were there. And some of us are facing felony charges. And, we kept on organizing, helping organize actions. And the last ones have been more of mass actions. I'm sure a lot of you have seen how the tactic is now, having huge caravans of 80, 100 cars going to the construction sites and doing ceremony and prayer at those construction sites and stopping construction. So yeah, basically that's a quick summary of why I was there.
Thanks, Carlo. Alyzza, do you want to tell us a little bit about what brought you there from North Carolina?
Yeah, and my name's pronounced Eliza.
Oh, Eliza, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's my whole life. But yeah, so Hank knows. But yeah, so I was part of a delegation from North Carolina of 5 people. We had 3 people from Greensboro, 2 people from Charlotte. And part of what led us was after the dog attack, specifically in early September, just like the presence and violence that was present. That was what I think caught our attention more than anything, but then also just being able to see the ways that within our own communities, that our communities are really policed, and also the role, like there's going to be a pipeline that people want to build through Eastern North Carolina that's just recently been completely devastated by flooding. So just being able to see the connections between our struggles in North Carolina and North Dakota was really significant as to what led us to attend and to go on this pilgrimage of sorts. And I think it was also really significant that everyone except myself in our caravan was also Black, which like the tying of the struggles of Black Lives Matter movement currently, also with Indigenous resistance, was significant, which I think was also interesting because when we arrived, I was actually shocked by the number of white people present. And I think that is, like, it needs to be mentioned. But just our commitment to our struggles and seeing the ways that they're tied and interconnected with each other was what led our group to attend. And these connections keep getting stronger and stronger.
Thanks. And you know, for viewers that aren't aware of this history, the movement that is called environmental justice really started in North Carolina with African American communities in eastern North Carolina protecting and reclaiming the safety of their land from toxic waste. So it's really it's great to see that connection being made explicitly. Florence, do you want to tell us a little bit about what called you to North Dakota and what you experienced there?
Sure. So just to say, I like Carlo, I've been a climate change activist and have also worked a lot on Indigenous issues. I was part of the team that helped bring the Lummi Nation to GA in Portland over their struggle, ultimately, at least at this point, successful, to stop a big coal port on their traditional lands up near Bellingham, Washington. So I was following Standing Rock pretty closely as soon as it got at least into the Facebook media, and started preaching on it. Actually, we had our annual water ceremony in early September, and I preached on it. And at that point, I said, you know, I'm really happy to be here, but I have to tell you, half my heart is in North Dakota. But I just started a new ministry job, and it didn't seem like I could just leave to go to North Dakota. But as the days went on, I felt the call more and more and more strongly. And one of the things I realized is that I wanted to, if I was going to go, that as a minister, I should see if there was a group of people who wanted to come with me. So I put out a call both to the Pacific Northwest ministers and also to people in my congregation. And literally within 30 hours before going was about when I put out that call. And one minister joined me, Dennis Reynolds from Whidbey Island, and 4 people from Port Townsend, 3 from the congregation, ranging in age from 25 to 75 probably, and a community member who'd actually lived through the fracking wars in Pennsylvania. So we all traveled together by train out to North Dakota, met up with the Bismarck Mandan congregation people, and then spent time in the camp and came back. And I guess in terms of what I wanted to share, one of the things I'll say that for me, following this story, it really began to feel like Selma 1965, that there was a call actually from the chairman of the Standing Rock. There continues to be a call from the camps for people to come and be of support. And I'm sure in 1965, a lot of UU ministers felt really, really busy and that it would be hard to leave and go. And considering that, it felt to me like I just had to make it happen one way or another. I know Dennis Reynolds, I just want to speak a little bit from other people's stories too. Dennis Reynolds, minister from Whidbey Island, said, how can I stand up in the pulpit and tell my people to really act in the cause of justice and not be willing to put my own life on the line and do something? So there was that feeling. And I would say in terms of what we experienced at the camp, it was a transformative experience for each person in a different way. I think we were all struck by the really extraordinary commitment to prayer and tradition, ceremony, and nonviolence that was very much not just in what happens on the pipeline in terms of trying to stop that, but in how people are in the camp, we were treated with tremendous graciousness and appreciation for our presence there. Couple of stories, just Cher DeWeese, who was one of our delegation, had a number of experiences where people heard that she was Unitarian Universalist. And they said, one story she tells, he was in line with these two guys, and one punched the other one in the shoulder and said, "I told you they'd be here. I told you they'd come here." And that people said to her, "Oh, you're the radical people who stand up for people who need to be, need to feel that there are others with them. And we are so glad you're here." So we're really known in Indian country, and that was a big surprise.
Wow, that's a big thing to live up to.
Yeah, it's a big thing to live up to. They said, you know, and actually Bismarck Mandan's been there, but hadn't necessarily been public. And I read the letter from the UU ministers publicly there at a request of an elder. And people said things like, we've been waiting for you. We've been waiting for you. So, and the people from the Bismarck Mandan congregation who were there that day, we all stood up in front of those gathered at the main council fire in the camp, and so that we would say, yes, we are here with you. So I just, I really wanted to share those things.
So what is happening right now? The last that I've seen news-wise was first, right, that there was the ruling that came and said that the construction could begin again, and then there were on October 10th arrests. What's happening kind of on the ground right now? Anyone who knows?
Well, right now, can you hear me? Yeah. Right now, people remain committed to camping throughout the winter, to maintaining the struggle. There has been definitely an uptick in police presence and in arrests. This is I see this as a critical turning point. The Fargo Forum. Fargo is not that close to Bismarck or to Standing Rock. It's about 200 miles from Bismarck and more than that from Standing Rock. But the Fargo Forum, which is the biggest paper in our state, today had an editorial calling for the protests, as they were called, to stop, that it's time for that to stop. And a number of political leaders of the majority party, both who are in office and who are running for office, are claiming that that the pause created by the Obama administration was an overreach, and that it's time to just get this pipeline done. So, of all times, when I think supporting people and supporting hope, this might be the most important time that we've faced so far. It's getting cold. It's getting physically harder to be at the camp. It's been a long time that water protectors have maintained a sense of conviction and hope. And of all times, I think this is when a sense of solidarity across the nation, where people live, with local actions are most needed.
Yeah, I saw in the, it's Hank here. I saw in the paper, actually, the Boston Globe yesterday had an article saying that the stay that the Obama, that the government had put in was overturned, and that construction was going to start again, and that people who were there are going out and starting to get arrested to go and chain themselves to machines and all that as well.
Yes, and on the part of youth in particular at Standing Rock, there has consistently been a call to Barack Obama as a human being to take action. he came and visited Standing Rock not too long ago and expressed his solidarity with the youth of Standing Rock, with Native youth in general, and specifically with the youth at Standing Rock. And they have been calling on him and asking him, where are you? This is when we need your solidarity most.
You know, one of the things I think I just want to jump in here and say is that I think a lot of people, one of the things I heard when I read editorials from North Dakota papers and that kind of thing is, hey, why didn't the tribes complain about this in the consultation process? Well, I dug into this a little bit because I come from a background of environmental assessment, and it turns out that there really wasn't a consultation process. And very unusual how this pipeline was fast-tracked. What I read was that the Corps has a little known rule that's to exempt little projects like boat launches from a whole major environmental impact process. And that was, they actually divided the pipeline into tiny, tiny segments. And so the normal process of environmental assessment and consultation really didn't take place. And I think that's at the heart of some of the more regulatory and justice in terms of the legal system challenges, which really most people don't seem to even realize. And I've seen that repeatedly in editorials in newspapers is, hey, why didn't they get involved earlier in the process, those tribes? Why are they jumping in now? And really there was an egregious violation of federal policy in order to get this pipeline underway at all. So I wanted to mention that because I think most people aren't aware of that.
Yeah, it sounds like a real manipulation of the system.
Yes, and in terms of sovereignty, this is a major breach. So to put a notice in a local newspaper for a sovereign nation to respond to a major construction of a pipeline that changes and puts at risk the lives of people from that nation is not adequate notice and is not adequate communication. So around here, we hear some pretty regular complaints. Well, you know, the tribe had an opportunity and they didn't weigh in. Well, it's only an opportunity by a very, very narrow definition. The tribe is a sovereign nation that should be treated that way from the beginning and have been at the table and invited to be at the table. And in fact, because that Standing Rock is a sovereign nation, this proposal never should have gotten as far as it did in the first place. The pipeline was originally, the first draft put the pipeline north of Bismarck, and the Missouri River flows south, roughly south. So had there been a break in the pipeline, which pipelines in North Dakota tell us there will be, then that would have directly affected the water supply in Bismarck. Well, then the plans were redrawn south of Bismarck, but north of Standing Rock. I'm just almost speechless with the lack of respect and the lack of a sense of shared human dignity at every single step. It's and to live in the midst of it is it's unreal.
Yeah, I mean, basically now it's really crunch time because you know the DC Circuit Court repealed the tribe's injunction for stopping the construction in the 20-mile segment west of the Missouri River, which is just a couple miles north of where the camps are, and now is when the real fight is going to happen, and the camps have made a big, nationwide call for everyone with experience in nonviolent direct action, civil disobedience, and folks who know how to, winterize and help in other ways to show up from everywhere, because that's the last 20-mile segment that the pipeline, has to be built on, which is right north of the camps. And that's, now is the time where we really have to show up and physically stop that construction. The problem is that, the Energy Transfer bought the ranch, bought the property, 6,000 acres, through which a lot of these 20-mile tract of pipeline runs through. They bought it just so that they can protect it even more from the water protectors, so they can claim that it is private property. And yeah, we're going to need hundreds, thousands of people. It's not just, as we've seen recently, we started with direct actions where it was a small group of people doing, chaining or locking down to machinery. Now the strategy is to have hundreds of people showing up and putting their bodies on the line and stopping the construction of this pipeline. So it's a really critical time. I'm heading over there on Saturday and hoping to do whatever I can. Obviously, well, not obviously, because I'm facing felony charges, I cannot be caught again, because that would complicate my situation. But I'm willing to help, in lots of other ways to make this happen. So yeah. Anybody, now is the time to come and help to actually stop this pipeline, because there's, like others have pointed out, there's so much more at stake than just this pipeline. There's a whole issue of indigenous rights, honoring the treaties, deciding the direction we're going to go in as a country. And it's really, really important that we not allow this pipeline to actually get built. And the part that still Obama could decide on is the permit to go under the Missouri River. That still has not been decided. But the pipeline is almost, completely built elsewhere. So, and the other thing, there's also another focus of resistance down in Iowa, where the pipeline is being bored under the Mississippi, and there's another camp there, Mississippi Stand. And they're also wanting folks to join them over there. That one is not indigenous led and is mainly, white folks and other settler folks, but they also need a lot of help. So.
And if we have viewers who want to come and put their bodies on the line, where should they get, is there a website? Is there an organization that they can go to get more information about this?
I mean, they can go to, on Facebook, there's Sacred Stone Camp, there's Red Warrior Camp. Unfortunately, nowadays, a lot of the camps are collaborating and working together on this. And sacredstonecamp.org has information too. Or just show up, and there's a whole team of legal support. Nobody's going to be left on their own if they get arrested. But, right now it's numbers that we need.
I also want to say money. There are lots of people who can't go to North Dakota, but the Standing Rock Sioux Nation itself, its own website, has a link for donations, and it's extraordinary. You go there and you are fed, you are taken care of. We brought our own camping gear, but in every other way we were taken care of, and to support thousands of people, that's major. So I really hope that, and of course the usual sorts of things of contacting our representatives and that kind of thing, but really it really does matter to give funds, and they will be used by the water protectors. So these legal issues that people are facing, all of that, those are major ways to participate.
And I know Slim or someone from CLF will make sure that we put some of those links out on the CLF website or Facebook page.
One of the people from my group also started a letter since there's a UU minister's letter, a UU lay people's letter in support, and I'll make sure that Slim has that link as well.
The Standing Rock Nation is giving a lot of resources to the water protection movement and to the camps, and The most recent article I read said that the North Dakota Health Department will not be providing support of any kind, deeming the camps illegal. So to provide just sanitation services is all upon the Standing Rock tribe to do. So support there, just to echo what others have said, support there is very important. And certainly our congregation, we've heard from UU people and other people from probably at this point most states in the country. And we are certainly willing to help you figure out how to get there and to be connected to others who are local. We can provide some limited homestays as you come and go. And our congregation is very involved and very in solidarity. And we, to the extent that our small congregation is able, we are honored to be a support of others around the country, and to meet you and join in solidarity with you for Standing Rock.
And how are y'all keeping going? What are y'all doing? I'm just asking y'all as individuals.
Let me, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, please, go ahead.
Okay, when you say how are you all keeping going, I have to tell you that sitting here listening to this is pretty incredible, the movement and the people who are willing to support this. But I guess I would like to put a word in for the children. We are obligated to do that. Our ancestors thought of us, and that is why any of us should be doing this for our kids, our grandkids. I took my son and I managed to get my granddaughter there, and she is 8 years old, and at this point it was just a little mini adventure that she got to go on, but someday she'll be able to say she was there. And I have recently been informed by other family members that my paternal family and my maternal family, we had members of our family in Pine Ridge, South Dakota during the Wounded Knee, the original Wounded Knee massacre, that event. And so my family has been a part of this span of history, and I want my granddaughter to be able to say that she was a part of it as well, and that she knows that her family and others resisted the pipeline, this pipeline, that if it started a movement, that would be good, that we were there and we were standing up for her and for all children, and for as long as we know that they're going to be around. And I will just say that even though she wasn't completely aware of all the what was happening, or not yet, before we left, she was chanting from the back seat, "Water is life. Water is life." So I was very, very buoyed up by that, I guess. So.
Yeah, I would imagine that thinking of our children in this, both buoys you, but also it's scary. I mean, it's scary to think of what they could be losing.
Yeah.
You know, Candy Mossett, who is with the Indigenous Environmental Network, and spoke here at a teach-in with Winona LaDuke and other leaders very recently. Candy is from the Hidatsa Arikara Mandan Nation, 3 affiliated tribes, which is farther away from Standing Rock than Bismarck is. And one of the last times that we were at the camp, she told us that her ancestors 200 years ago brought medicine to the camp, the Ochedi Shakwi area, in prophetic anticipation of people coming together at this time. And that means that we are the children that they were thinking of.
Wow.
I want to add something to that. Some people may have heard references to the black snake in this. And while Dennis and I were there was a prayer walk down the road to where the pipeline crosses, where the grave sites were disturbed, and there was a ceremony there by elders for the spirits of the people who had been disturbed. And one of the people who spoke said, you have to understand, this is an ancient prophecy that when the black snake crosses our land, it's the beginning of the end of the world. And they weren't talking about their world, they're talking about our world. And I really think, as much as we talk about standing in solidarity, this is about all of us. And that's very clear at the camps. This is about all of us, and not just, it's not about races. This is about our world. And oddly enough, I think all the people that went with me came back actually inspired and encouraged, because you're in this environment of people really being together. One person said, I went to stand with Standing Rock and I'm never sitting down again. This is it. And so I think there's also inspiration here, not just despair.
I think right now, because of the recent decisions, this is a harder passage than we've faced before. This is the closest to despair that I've felt in this movement. Certainly, my experience of being at the camps is one of healing and hope and anticipation and world change. In my view, Standing Rock is the center of the world right now.
Hey, Eliza, you spoke about when you arrived there, just sort of being surprised at sort of the number of white folks that were there. Could you say a bit more about that? And also, how did the folks, the African American folks that you went with, what was their experience there? Because I know that that you traveled with folks who didn't necessarily have any native connections. What was their experience, both there and then also coming back to North Carolina?
Yeah. So I was definitely really surprised by the number of white people there, and I've definitely been settling on this notion of like welcoming and hospitality, because our group did experience a lot of anti-Blackness, which is something that like can't be hidden from the narrative. And one of our members is also Black and Indigenous, and so that was also particularly difficult to have their identities like pinned against each other essentially in this setting. And it's been like, with the like number of white folk, it was also like, did like a bunch of people just like roll out of Burning Man, and like, is it a bunch of like oogles or something who are like, ooh, like I can get a free meal here and a place to stay. Like, I don't know. It was definitely interesting. I was like, why are there so many white people with dreadlocks here? Like, what is the analysis of like racial inequity and like capitalism? Like, why are you here? And so that was definitely very interesting to like witness. And the first night we were in Sacred Stone, but then the rest of the week we were in the main camp. And so, yeah, that was just like that. And it was also interesting then, like leaving. We decided to leave when we left because of the consistent anti-Blackness that our group was experiencing. And it was interesting because then, like, 3 days after we got back, Keith Lamont Scott was murdered in Charlotte by the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. And so then instantly had to go into that world. And so it's just been really interesting, like, going from Standing Rock to then like direct, like the Charlotte uprising, where one of the people who I was with has been one of the lead leaders of the uprising also. So just the fact that like you just never get to stop. And I mean, I think it's also interesting, even just like some of the conversations that we were beginning to have there about Black and Indigenous solidarity. Like as like you and I are people, I'm speaking to my uncle in this moment, Hank, like are people who are descended from Wampanoag people, like that's part of our lineage. And Wampanoag specifically also like are one of the like the nations that have like historically also had a lot of like Black folk, like Black, it's like part of the identity. And so it's just interesting, like going from an East Coast Indigenous like worldview or like experience or like witness to then also Plains indigeneity, which is completely different. I don't know. There's a lot. There's just a lot.
Yeah, I want to clarify a little bit, Eliza. I don't know when you were at camp, but it makes a big difference when you were there and in which camp you were there. So when I got there in mid-August, main camp was 90% Indigenous, and there were thousands of people, and it was really truly amazing. And that main camp stayed mainly Indigenous, although now as the weather's gotten colder and the winds and other factors, there's kind of maybe a 50-50. Sacred Stone Camp did get inundated with kind of rainbow, Burning Man kind of folks with dreadlocks and more hippie-like folks, and that became an issue. At the Sacred Stone Camp, which is a smaller camp, although it was the original one. So it makes a big difference, when and where you were there. I don't want folks to get the idea that, the whole camp in itself is mainly white and composed of rainbow consciousness gathering, more hippie type folks. But I hear you completely.
Yeah, and it was majority Native. I was just surprised by the number of white folks overall. Yeah.
So along with actually being able to go there or to donate money, it seems like an important part is carrying the stories, especially because we're not getting, that right now the main news is all about the American election. What are and from my own experience, we have to tell these stories over and over and over before they start kind of penetrating, the consciousness of the country. What is the main story we need to be telling out of this?
I'm just going to say this quickly, that people really need to know there's something extraordinary happening there, and we are all needed.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it is that resistance is not futile. Like, I think that, hearing this piece about like despair that's real, capitalism exists to separate us and make us feel horrible. And that, I don't know, I believe that we will win.
Yeah, I think it really, it encapsulates so many different elements of issues in our nation, whether it's the Indigenous people, whether it's oil exploration and consumerism and capitalism, whether it is a spiritual people wanting to be able to have their own land, whether it's racism, all these things, and it's not easy. It's and it's part of the work of being of trying to be good people. I think so often we all get hung up on trying to be as pure and as righteous, and it doesn't always work like that. There's there's no because we don't necessarily have even a common faith, as never mind as Unitarian Universalists, but even as a nation, that all of a sudden we look for these outside things that sort of say like, oh, this is what will teach me that I'm a good person, as if I do this or if I do that, and then it gets it's difficult. It becomes really difficult when we when these things bump up against each other. Thank you all, and
Right.
for talking about this and for going.
Yeah.
And I think also, oh, sorry, Joanna.
Go ahead, Michael.
I'm struck by that story of the black snake crossing the land, because I think while we need to be paying attention to what's happening at Standing Rock, and that pipeline needs to be stopped, if the sacred lands and waters of the Standing Rock Nation are destroyed for this pipeline, that just enables other lands and other waters to be destroyed, right? This is not, oh, this pipeline will be the last pipeline ever, right? Here in Peekskill, we're fighting a gas pipeline that's being laid right through people's backyards and 100 feet from a nuclear power plant that's sited on a earthquake fault. And you know, if that happens, it just enables the next pipeline and the next layer of destruction. So the resistance is important. Eliza, I appreciate you bringing that it's not futile. That it's really important that this be resisted with all our might in a certain way.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, that there is something historic and inspiring and unique going on in North Dakota, and it has to do with the, you know, the first peoples of this land, a land that, you know, this country was born out of, you know, it was built on stolen land and born out of genocide, and you know, all the treaties we signed have not been honored, and we need to honor those treaties and acknowledge, you know, our history and the origins of this country, and redress some of that, and that, you know, Native Americans are still here and they continue to be exploited and their resources, you know, exploited, and we need to support them. And I also want to, before we end, I don't want to scare people with, you know, my being charged with felony charges. Only 5 of us or 6 of us that actually locked down are facing that. All the other 100+ people are facing criminal trespass, which is not that, you know, such a big deal, especially for us, more privileged, you know, white Americans. You know, facing criminal trespass is not such a big deal, and we can make a big difference by showing up and putting our bodies on the line for this cause.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us, and to our viewers, thank you. And before we leave with our guests or anyone, any last thoughts?
Don't give up.
Very important.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.